One man is booking a flight to Lisbon, doesn't even check his bank account. His college roommate? He's lying awake at 3 in the morning wondering if he can afford his blood pressure medication and his property taxes. Same degree, same salary, same opportunities. The difference wasn't what they did in their 20s. And by their 50s, it was already too late. The entire trajectory of their lives was sealed by a series of quiet, Tuesday afternoon decisions made entirely in their 30s. Stick with me because by the end of this video, I'm going to show you the mathematical proof that your 30s are worth 5 times more than your 50s. And if you miss this window, you cannot outsave the lost time. These two guys, they graduated together in 2002. Same state school, same business degrees, same starting salaries within a few $1,000s of each other. Through their 20s, both were figuring things out. Entry-level jobs, cheap apartments, student loan payments. Neither one had enough money to make decisions that mattered long-term. But then their 30s arrived, and something most people never talk about started happening. A series of quiet, completely ordinary choices began pulling their futures in opposite directions. Not dramatic choices, not lottery wins or bankruptcies, just regular Tuesday afternoon decisions about houses, cars, careers, and what to do with the gap between what they earned and what they spent. By the time either of them noticed the difference, well, it was permanent. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly why your 30s carry this kind of invisible weight. The specific decisions that separate wealth from struggle, and the real numbers that prove this decade, not your 40s, not your 50s, is where your retirement gets built or broken. Your 30s. You see, they sit at the intersection of 3 financial forces that never align this way again at any other point in your life. Understanding these 3 forces explains why this single decade quietly determines everything that follows. The first force is the earnings jump. In your 20s, you're earning starter money. The average college graduate in their mid-20s brings home somewhere around $45,000 to $55,000 a year. But something happens between 30 and 39. Promotions stack. Experience commands premiums. Career switches start paying off. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that median income for workers aged 35 to 44 sits around $62,000 individually. For dual-income households, that number climbs past $110,000. This is the first time in most people's lives where real financial margin exists. Money comes in that doesn't have to immediately go back out. Your 20s didn't have this. Your 40s will have higher income. But the compounding window shrinks dramatically. Your 30s are the first decade where you have enough money to actually do something meaningful with it. The second force is compounding runway. And this is where the math gets almost unfair. At 30, you have roughly 35 years until traditional retirement at 65. $1 invested at 30 in a diversified index fund, returning the historical average of around 8% annually, becomes approximately $14.78 by 65. That same dollar invested at 40 becomes roughly $10. At 50, it becomes about $3.17. You see what's happening here? The dollar you invest at 30 is worth nearly 5 times what the dollar you invest at 50 is worth, not because you're smarter at 30, simply because time is the most powerful financial force in existence, and your 30s are the last decade where you have enough of it to create exponential results. You cannot outsave lost time. The math doesn't allow it. The third force is expense flexibility. Your 30s are the last decade where your major expenses haven't fully locked in. You're still making decisions about where to live, what to drive, how much house to carry. By your 40s, most of these decisions have already been made. The mortgage is signed. The lifestyle is set. Your 30s give you one window to set these baselines deliberately rather than accidentally. The family that locks in an $1,800 mortgage at 32 instead of a $3,200 mortgage has $1,400 a month of margin for the next 30 years. That margin, invested, becomes the difference between retiring with $1.4 million and retiring with $400,000. Same income, different baseline decisions made in the 30s. These 3 forces, rising income, maximum compounding runway, and unlocked expenses, converge only once. Miss this window, and you're fighting math that gets harder every single year. But here's what makes this truly urgent, and it's the part most people miss completely. Let me show you the specific numbers. Consider someone who starts saving 15% of their income at age 30. They earn 75 grand, rising to 110,000 by their mid-40s. They invest in index funds, returning 8% annually. By 65, they've accumulated approximately 1.62 million. Social Security on top of that, they're looking at a comfortable retirement with real margin. Now consider their friend. Same income, same trajectory, but they spend their 30s saying, I'll start saving seriously at 40. During their 30s, they save just 3%, basically the minimum 401k match. At 40, reality hits, and they jump to 15%. By 65, they've accumulated approximately 870 grand. That's 750,000 less, despite only losing 10 years of serious saving. The 30s contributions had 35 years to compound. The 40s contributions only had 25. The mathematical leverage of that lost decade cannot be recovered. Now consider a third person. Same income, but they spend their 30s actively inflating their lifestyle. Nicer apartment, newer car, more expensive vacations. Savings rate during the 30s averages 1%. At 40, panic sets in. They save 20% aggressively through retirement. Despite this heroic effort, they accumulate approximately 680 grand by 65. Their comfortable 30s cost them nearly $1 million in retirement wealth. A decade of decisions created a gap that 2 decades of correction could not close. Every year of serious saving you skip in your 30s, and I mean every single year, costs you roughly 75 to 100,000 in retirement wealth. Not because of the money you didn't save. Because of the compounding that money would have done for 30+ years. Now, the math explains why your 30s carry disproportionate weight. But math alone doesn't determine your outcome. Specific decisions do. And there are 5. 5 that matter more than everything else combined. If you only pay attention to 5 things in your entire 30s, make it these 5. The first decision is housing. Your 30s almost always bring a housing upgrade conversation. You're earning more, maybe starting a family. The apartment feels too small. The starter home doesn't match where you think you should be, and the pressure to upgrade hits hard. This housing decision might be the single most consequential financial choice you make in your entire life. The couple that buys a $450,000 home instead of a $280,000 home increases their monthly housing cost by roughly $1,200 to $1,500. That sounds manageable on a good income, but that monthly difference, invested over 30 years at 8%, compounds to somewhere between $1.2 million and $1.8 million. The bigger house literally costs $1 million or more in retirement wealth, not the purchase price, the opportunity cost of what that monthly difference would have become. Most people make this decision thinking they can afford the payment. They can afford the payment. What they can't afford is the retirement they just gave away. The second decision is vehicles. Your 30s bring a subtle but expensive shift in how you think about cars. The reliable used car from your 20s starts feeling beneath you. Colleagues drive nicer things. The family running 2 $40,000 vehicles instead of 2 $22,000 vehicles carries roughly 36 grand more in auto debt at any given time, pays higher insurance, and faces pricier maintenance. Over a 30-year span with regular replacements, the vehicle premium costs somewhere between $350,000 and $600,000 in retirement wealth. Your car choice across 3 decades of replacements can cost you $500,000 in retirement. Most people never calculate this because they evaluate each purchase individually instead of seeing it as a repeating lifetime pattern. The third decision is lifestyle inflation rate. This one is silent and deadly. Every time your income increases in your 30s, you face an invisible choice. Does the raise go to your future or to your present? The family that maintains their $65,000 lifestyle on a $95,000 income and invests the 30 grand difference creates staggering wealth over 30 years. The family that expands spending to match every raise retires on Social Security and stress. Whatever relationship you create between your income and your spending in this decade tends to persist permanently. Lifestyle inflation doesn't feel like a decision because it happens gradually. A nicer restaurant here, a better vacation there. Each one is small. Combined over a decade, They redirect hundreds of thousands of dollars from your future self to momentary comfort you won't even remember. The fourth decision is career risk. Your 30s are your last clean window for career acceleration. You have enough experience to command higher roles, but enough runway to recover if a move doesn't work out. The person who takes a strategic career risk at 33 changes industries, negotiates aggressively, joins a faster-growing company, has 30 years to benefit from the higher earnings trajectory. The person who plays it safe, well, they leave potentially $20,000 to $40,000 in annual earnings on the table. Over a full career, that's $400,000 to $800,000 in additional income, much of which could have been invested during peak compounding years. By your 40s, career moves get harder. Hiring biases creep in. Family obligations make risk feel threatening. The stability that feels responsible at 38 often becomes the cage that limits you at 48. The fifth decision is debt architecture. How you structure and eliminate debt in your 30s shapes everything. The person who aggressively pays down student loans, avoids car debt, and keeps their mortgage modest enters their 40s with financial margin that compounds for 25 more years. The person who carries student loans into their late 30s, stacks car payments on top, and stretches for maximum mortgage, enters their 40s with obligations that consume every dollar of rising income. You know, there's a massive difference between entering 40 with $2,000 a month in debt payments versus entering 40 with $200 a month. That $1,800 monthly difference over 25 years at 8% becomes roughly $1.7 million. Most people treat debt management as a chore. It's actually the foundation that makes everything else on this list possible. Those 5 decisions, housing, vehicles, lifestyle inflation, career risk, and debt architecture, they interact with each other. Get 3 of them right, and you're probably fine. Get 3 of them wrong, and the math becomes nearly impossible to overcome. But here's what really brings this to life, and this next part is going to hit differently because I'm going to show you 2 families who made different choices with the exact same starting point. Let me tell you about Marcus and Danielle. They married at 27. By 32, they had a combined income of $115,000, a modest home worth $240,000 with $195,000 remaining on the mortgage, about $45,000 in retirement savings, and 2 young kids. Marcus got promoted at 33, and their income jumped to $135,000. The raise, it felt like permission. They upgraded to a $420,000 home in a nicer school district. Monthly housing costs jumped by $1,300. They figured they'd adjust. 2 years later, Danielle's car died. Instead of replacing it with something reliable, they financed a $42,000 SUV because, as Marcus put it, they could afford the payment. At 36, their first child started competitive travel sports. Fees, equipment, travel, hotels, $8,000 a year that hadn't existed before. Neither Marcus nor Danielle felt financially irresponsible at any point. Every individual decision seemed reasonable. They still contributed 4% to retirement to get the company match. They told themselves they'd ramp it up later. By 40, their retirement accounts held $78,000. That's only $33,000 more than they'd had at 32, despite 8 years of contributions and market growth. The house, the cars, the kids' activities, the lifestyle creep had absorbed everything. At 42, Marcus suggested they needed to start saving seriously. They ran the numbers and, the projection terrified them. Even saving aggressively from 42 forward, they'd likely accumulate around $520,000 by 65. Workable, but tight. No margin for emergencies, no early retirement, no helping their kids later. Their comfortable 30s had quietly written the script for a stressful retirement. Now let me tell you about Kevin and Rachel. They looked remarkably similar to Marcus and Danielle at 32. Combined income of $118,000. Modest home worth $255,000, about $50,000 in retirement savings, 2 young kids. When Kevin got a similar promotion at 34, pushing their income to $140,000, Rachel had a different reaction. She'd seen her own parents struggle in retirement despite good incomes. She told Kevin that every dollar of the raise should go to retirement accounts before they adjusted their lifestyle to fit it. Kevin pushed back at first. He wanted a bigger house. Rachel pulled out a compound interest calculator and showed him what the numbers looked like at 65 if they stayed put versus upgraded. Kevin went quiet. They stayed in their $255,000 home. When Rachel's car needed replacing, they bought a 3-year-old certified pre-owned for 18 grand. When their kids showed interest in sports, they chose the local league at $400 a year instead of the $8,000 travel team. Throughout their 30s, you see, Kevin and Rachel felt like they were swimming against the current. Their friends were upgrading houses, driving nicer cars, posting vacation photos from resort destinations. Kevin admitted later that it was the hardest financial discipline of his life. But by 40, their retirement accounts held $310,000. The aggressive saving combined with 8 years of compounding in a rising market had transformed their position. More importantly, they'd established a pattern. The gap between their income and their spending had become permanent. They weren't sacrificing anymore. The modest lifestyle just felt normal. By 50, their accounts held $820 grand. By 65, Kevin and Rachel had accumulated $1.85 million. Their house was paid off. They could retire fully, travel wherever they wanted, help their kids with down payments, never worry about money again. The mathematical difference between these two families wasn't earned by different incomes or different investment skill. It was earned by different 30s decisions. Marcus and Danielle earned nearly identical money. Kevin and Rachel simply kept more of it during the decade when keeping it mattered most. You know what strikes me every time I look at stories like these? During their 30s, both families felt equally satisfied with their lives. Research consistently shows that lifestyle inflation provides only temporary happiness boosts. Within 18 to 24 months, people adapt to their new normal. Marcus and Danielle didn't actually enjoy their 30s more than Kevin and Rachel. They just spent more. The additional spending provided no lasting satisfaction while permanently constraining their remaining decades. Let me give you specific guidance based on where you are right now. If you're in your early 20s watching this, you have an almost unfair advantage. You now understand that your 30s will present constant pressure to expand your lifestyle during your first real earning years. Open the retirement accounts now. Set up automatic contributions now, even if they're small. When your 30s arrive, you'll already have the infrastructure and the muscle memory to prioritize saving over spending. If you're entering your 30s right now, you're standing at the most important financial inflection point of your life. Before you upgrade anything, the house, the car, the lifestyle, run the compound interest math on what that upgrade costs you at 65, not the monthly payment. The 30-year compounding cost. Set your savings rate now, before your income makes excess spending feel painless. 15% minimum. Automate it so it happens before you see the money. If you're in your late 30s and recognizing yourself in the wrong story, well, you still have time. Every percentage point you add to your savings rate right now will significantly improve your outcome. Can you downsize housing, sell the expensive car, freeze your lifestyle and invest every future raise? The person who makes radical changes at 37 still has 28 years of compounding. That is still a powerful number. If you're already past your 30s, here's the truth. The best time to start was in your 30s. The second best time is today. Maximize catch-up contributions. Delay Social Security. Consider working 2 or 3 extra years. Each additional year can improve your retirement income by 8 to 10%. Let me address the thing that underlies every decision on this list. The psychological trap of your 30s. After grinding through your 20s, your 30s feel like the first time you've earned the right to actually enjoy your money. You worked hard. You built the career. The impulse to finally live a little. It feels completely justified. When does the payoff arrive, if not now? This framing is exactly the trap that captures most people. The gratification you're seeking through lifestyle expansion delivers temporary pleasure followed by permanent constraint. The bigger apartment feels exciting for a year, then it just feels normal while permanently reducing your savings rate. The new car provides a thrill for 6 months, then it's just a car while the payment drains margin every month. True gratification isn't found in consuming your first real earning decade. It's found in converting that decade into genuine financial freedom. The person who resists lifestyle inflation in their 30s experiences real gratification every day of their comfortable retirement. The person who inflated their lifestyle experiences real stress every day of their constrained retirement. The discipline lasts 10 years. The reward lasts 30. Picture yourself at 65. You're sitting somewhere quiet on a Tuesday morning. In one version of this future, you're deciding between Lisbon and Tokyo for next month's trip. Unexpected expenses don't threaten your stability. You help your kids when they need it without checking the balance. In the other version, you're calculating whether this month's Social Security check covers both the medications and the electric bill. You're anxious about what happens if the car needs repairs. Both versions of you made their 30s decisions decades earlier. Both are living with the compound result. Which version you become depends almost entirely on what you do between 30 and 40, not on luck. Not on inheritance, on 5 categories of decisions: housing, vehicles, lifestyle inflation, career risk, and debt architecture that compound exactly like money does. Your 30s will end eventually. The decade will pass whether you make intentional choices or default ones. The only question is which version of your 65-year-old self you're building right now. Your 30s will seal the answer. That's not a burden. That's the most powerful opportunity you'll ever get. What you do with it is entirely up to you. And if you want to understand what happens when people actually execute this plan and watch their money grow faster than they ever expected in retirement, check out this video right here, where I break down exactly how retirees with $600,000 end up with $2 million. The math behind it will change how you think about everything we just talked about.